Yeah, art, drawing, painting, everything started really early for me. It was just one of those things that I just enjoyed doing from a very, very early age. And I think all through things like primary school and things like that, or going into high school, that my strongest subjects was art and drawing. And it continued through high school, and they were the ones that was getting the A's in and the B's in and stuff like that and design. And yeah, it was so when I grew up, there was two things I loved, and there was football. I played football, I watched football, and then when I wasn't doing that, I was drawing or painting or whatever. And I think as well, I've just been looking back recently, is I had an obsession with Roy the Rovers. I was just Roy the Rovers was my thing. And when I got my pocket money, that's what I'd buy, and I'd buy the annuals and the little books, um, and I was a bit obsessed with it to the point where I think when my parents split up, my dad used to let me draw Roy the Rovers characters on my walls and things like that. And looking back on it, I was like, and I used to collect them all, and I had them all under my bed, all stacked up. And there was that, and there was also my dad was originally from Manchester, and he used to go to all the City and United games, and in like the 60s and 70s and stuff. And he used to collect the programs that he got. And my gran gave me all of his programs, so I was like, I was a bit obsessed with it. I'd look through them all, and my dad had like wrote little notes in, or he'd got players to sign it and stuff. And I don't know why, but I just was obsessed with them. And I again, under my bed, I had stacks of Roy the Rovers and stacks of my dad's old programs and stuff. And I suppose it's one of those things. It's just football and art. It's always been a thing with me. So going through high school, I got through high school, got A's in art and design and things like that. Managed to get into college at Preston to do a BTEC. I actually said, my mum said, what are you going to do when you go into college? And I said, so I'm going to do art. And she went, oh, you're not. There's no money in art. You're not doing art. So I was like, okay. So I said, the only other thing is graphic design. He said, that'll get you money. You go in that. So I thought, well, I want money. So that's what I went into. And then I went to Preston, did a BTEC graphic design, and I absolutely loved it because it wasn't just design. It was like life drawing, it was printmaking, it was, we'd go out to the Lake Districts and draw the landscape, but it'd also be like logo design and poster design and things like that. So I absolutely loved it. It was just like going from school and doing maths and English and all these things that felt difficult to me, and not difficult, but just like were taxing. This was just like, I get to come here and do what I enjoy and what I love. And there's people surrounding me who are actually really cool people who actually want to do the same thing. And I just felt like I was in the right thing. And like from my background, I grew up with a farming family. So every summer and every break and every holiday, every weekend, I was farming. And that was the last thing. I didn't want to end up leaving school and being a farmer, because that wasn't for me. That wasn't the life. So from college, I did well at college, but I tried to get straight into uni, which I kind of regret now. I don't think I got much advice on how to go on the next stage. And I really think, having spoken to people since, that some sort of, uni foundation course would have been good for me, just 1 year or something, or just to get me that next step towards uni. But I didn't. I went like applying to unis. And when I got there, I was so nervous. I felt like a kid, and the interviews didn't go well. And I didn't get into any of the unis, but I got onto an HND course at Bolton Institute. It's now Bolton University, but it was Bolton Institute at the time. And it was quite lucky because my mum actually lived in Bolton, so I could just live with my mum and I didn't have to, find anywhere to live or anything. So that was quite good. It's quite lazy. Probably missed out on that uni lifestyle, if you know what I mean, which is a shame. But yeah, it was quite easy. So I went to Bolton, and it was a decent course. I mean, since then I've been to Preston Uni quite a lot through my last job, sort of going to like the shows and talking to the students a lot, because they used to come to ours for interviews and stuff. And I think I would have really enjoyed that Preston Uni course, because it was very much ideas based as well as design. Whereas I think the Bolton one, I mean, I know it's changed now because it's a university course. I've heard it's really good now. And I know Anthony Rucroft, who runs that, and it's apparently really good now. But when I was there, I think it was more like, here's a design project, go and do some design, and here's another design project. It was less of the, let's think of some ideas, let's think of some words, let's generate thoughts around what you're doing, rather than just the practical side of delivering design. So I enjoyed it, but when I left there, I got an HND. Like nowadays, I would imagine when you're at uni, they sort of say, oh, these are the best design agencies all around the country, and here's, you know, you want to go to the Love in Manchester, or you want to go here, you want to go to Rose in London, or whatever it is. And when I was there, no one talked about that. No one talked about the agency you're going to, or going applying, or anything like that. So I just walked out of Bolton, went home and started farming again. And I was just applying to, like, I had the yellow pages. It's ridiculous. I had the yellow pages going, right, graphic design agencies. And I just sent CVs off to him. And when jobs came up, I'd apply for him. I mean, just looking back, it's just daft. And, but luckily the ones that I went to, they sort of said, right, well, your portfolio's all right, but what I'd do is take that out and move that. And what I'd do is develop that one a bit more. And I had like a full self-branding thing in there. And this guy just went, why are you self-branding yourself? And it's always stuck in my head a bit. Why are you self-branding yourself? People are judging you on that. Let them judge you on your work. So I took that out. And then I got an interview with an agency in Preston, which was literally near Moore Park College, where I went to college. It was on Garstang Road. It was literally 2 minutes walk from where I went to college. And the only reason the guy interviewed me was because in my references, I'd worked at the Harris Gallery in Preston, and he knew the guy. That was literally it. So got an interview, went for the interview, and it was fine. It was going all right. I was talking to these two guys, and they were interviewing me, and it was going all right. And then the boss walked in, Simon, my old boss, and he just walked in with rolled up his cigarette, sat there, looked through my portfolio while I was chatting to these other two guys, and he just went, probably not enough ideas in here. Good portfolio, not enough ideas. And then he sort of put it out and went, anyway, we'll give you a call. So like, I thought, oh, that didn't go well. So I left, went back to farming. And it was about a month later. I just was like, got home from farming. I was just like covered in mud and stuff. And I just thought, this isn't the life for me. And my dad actually rang me up, and he said, what are you doing? I said, I just got home. He says, ring that agency and just ask them what you did wrong, how they go about. So I just picked up the phone. I was really nervous, and I picked up, rang him, and that Simon answered. And he went, oh, I remember you. He says, we are crazy busy. Can you come in? Can you come in and give us a hand? And I went, yeah. And he went, when can you come in? I went, tomorrow. And he went, so I quit my job on the farm, which is now, he's my father-in-law now, because I married his daughter. So I said, I quit. I'm going to work as a designer. And I turned up, and then 22 years later, I left.
Wow.
Crazy. So like, I wouldn't have never got the job. If I hadn't rang up and pestered, I'd have never got the job. So I started, I was a junior, I made brews, I took the post. Them days, there was no sending PDFs to clients and all that sort of stuff. So I had to like, literally like print out visuals, you know, mount them up, spray mount and all that lot, you know, and deliver them to the client, or go to the reprographics thing, or go to the printers. So I was doing all these jobs. I was going to exhibitions, party conferences and stuff like that for the agency, which was, it's called The Point at the time. It's now 4 Point in Preston. And I managed to wing my way into a design job, if you know what I mean. It was just, and I wasn't letting go of it. It was kind of one of those things where throughout, when you work for a design agency, there's a lot of competition. So being the junior, you've got to deliver, because you've got to, you know, if you don't, they're just going to get a new junior, or the next junior comes in is going to overtake you and stuff like that. So I found it really competitive in terms of, a project came in, I wanted mine to be chosen, or I wanted mine to at least be liked by the team that we work with. And the 4 Point, basically what they do is a really good design agency. What they do is they work with risk sensitive industry clients. So BAE, you know, Ministry of Defence stuff. They work with the nuclear industry. They work with all sorts of different organizations that have really complex messages. And what they wanted 4 Point to do was simplify that, and that's through graphics, through design, through language. And they are amazing at that. You know, that's what they do. That's what they're experts at. So I quickly had to learn a lot in terms of learning the computers and stuff, because we didn't do a lot of that at college. So I was like constantly asking the lady next to me, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I got through, and there was a few times when there was like brand jobs to do, and I would I'd be successful. So like a logo get chosen, or a designer get chosen, and then that was like me, like the biggest buzz ever. I mean, I'd never had really anything like that before. It was kind of like scored goals in football was the equivalent, I would say, is you score a goal and you just get that buzz and you think, I did that. And like, that was in design, like my design got chosen. I remember doing a logo design for this company called Laser, and Steve, the designer at the time, he managed the client, and he said like, do you want to have a go at it? So I said, yeah. So I was like trying all these designs and stuff, and I came up with this design, and And he said, oh, well, we'll present that one. It's one of the ones we'll present. And I remember him going in the room, and I remember just sitting there and I couldn't work because I was thinking the client's in there, they're looking at my design. And he came out, he just looked at me and went, shows me your design. And I just remember it was like that scoring a goal thing. So you don't, but you want to act cool, don't you? So you sort of go, oh yeah, well, that's great. Inside, it's like, you know, and that was it. It's like a buzz then. It's like, I want the next one, I want the next one. And again, like I say about the competitive nature of it is, there's constantly a new junior coming, or there's constantly a new middleweight hired, or and you've got to keep on. And I felt that sort of pressure to keep going. I don't keep putting analogies to football, but if you're a footballer and they bring a new midfielder in, you want to up your game because you don't want that midfielder taking your spot. And that was kind of it. And that's how it felt a lot of the time, probably until I'd been there quite a while, probably about 12 years, maybe 15 years, something like that. And my boss, Simon, who actually hired me, he basically stepped down. So he sort of handed the company over to the three directors. And then I basically jumped up a step and started managing clients, helping manage a team, and then delivering for like one of their biggest clients, which was their nuclear clients. So for 20 years, I worked with the nuclear industry, and that was like delivering brands, websites, exhibitions, brand rollouts. So you're talking like totems, signage, everything you could ever think of, magazines. And that was my life for probably about 18 years as the nuclear industry. I've seen things, been places that no one will ever go to, really interesting, you know, things I can't talk about on here. And it was just, to some people, it'd be really boring. To me, not that I'm that interested in nuclear science and stuff like that. I just found everything really interesting from a design point of view. Is how can you make something so complex, so scary, so poorly looked at in the public eye, and actually make it legible and understandable and easy for people to get their head around. Actually, this isn't dangerous. Actually, they're doing a good thing. They're actually making this safe for our country, you know, and the people around them and their families and all the people that work there. And it was kind of like a big challenge, but I used to enjoy it, and especially love the clients. I just like even now, I'm sort of friends with clients online, and I just miss the clients so much, really. Yeah. But about 2011, 2012, I started. I've always been doing art in the background and illustration, always trying to do little things, but I never thought of illustration as a proper job, really, or something that I'd be good at. Because I always thought it was children's books, or it was book covers, or it was little things in magazines and things like that. And I never thought that's me, and I wasn't up on my drawing and my painting, so I wasn't going to be going to send stuff out to studios and things like that. But there was a time when there was more vector art. So there's things like, I don't know if you remember, like the Head Candy album covers and things like that. So art was becoming a bit more digital, and there was a lot more of the sort of vector type art about. And that's when I started, because I've been using Illustrator and InDesign, all these things, and I started Photoshop, and I just started thinking I can do a bit of this. And then over the couple of years, I developed styles and developed the way I wanted to work. I can never, like you're an illustrator, you have to have a style, you have to be specific, and it has to look like this, and everyone needs to know what your work looks like. And I had that in my head, but I could never find that style that I was happy with, that I wanted to do. And then one night, it sounds stupid, I always talk about this, but Ricky Gervais did The Office. And he did The Office, and he was being interviewed, and he said, I did The Office because I'd worked in an office, I understood an office, I understood what would be funny, and I understood it in terms of not making anything up. And I sort of started thinking, well, what do I enjoy doing? What do I like doing? And I just thought it's football and art. So I thought, I'm going to do, I'm doing this at home, I'm doing it in my spare time. Why not do something you enjoy and that you understand? So I started doing some football players, and I did a picture of David Silva, Man City player, and I put it on Flickr, if anyone remembers Flickr. And I didn't think anything of it, and I'd put all this stuff on Flickr, but that was just one thing I put on there. And then it was just a few weeks later, I just got this email that said, can we talk to you? We're an agency in Manchester, and we want to commission you through City to illustrate all the players. And I was just like, I thought they were taking a mick, to be honest, because it was like, I think it was the day before my birthday, I thought my mates were taking a mick or something. And I was actually at the point, and I went into the back room where you did all the mounting, the spray mounting. I'm there with my phone, I'm going, hi, yeah. And they're like, yeah, we're this design agency, and we want to commission you to do all this work. And I was like, and like, City's my team. So I was like, it was just like unbelievable. And yeah, so they commissioned me to illustrate the whole squad. That was used on it was like a City Kids thing. So it was like used on the website. It was in the programs. Every time there's a little program, there's a little cartoon. I did a cartoon. They did face masks. They did wall mounted stuff in the stadium. And at the time, me and my dad had season tickets. So when we went, we could actually see the work on the wall and stuff. So you've gone from like doing work for a nuclear client and doing brochures and doing that to suddenly, again, I was getting that feeling again, where I'd probably lost that a bit. I was getting that, oh my word, I'm working with a Premier League club. And it was around the time that City were, either winning the league or just ready for winning the league, and they won the FA Cup. So it was like, it was dreamland stuff. So I got interviewed at the ground as well. I said to them, and they took me to the ground, and I said, "Oh, can I bring my agent?" And they said, "Yeah." And I took my dad, so pretending my dad was my agent, and we got interviewed in the stand and stuff like that. And it was crazy. And I just thought, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. But I didn't want to do that style. And again, I thought, I could have said that's my style, and I'm going to do this. But I got it in my head. It's a bit like design. When you do graphic design, you're working for one client and you use the same font, or you use photography, or use whatever. You don't then go to the next client and use the same font, same photography, and same style. You do something completely different, or you look at what they're about and do it completely different. And that's kind of me with, like, when I was doing illustration, was, why do I have to stick to this one thing and do that every day? Why can't I now go and do? So that was a lot of face portraiture stuff, which they made into little figures. So why can't I now do action shots of players kicking the ball or whatever? And I don't even have to do it that way. I could do it with texture, or I could do it with distorting the head, or distorting the way they kick the ball, whatever it was. So that's what I did. I did little figures kicking the ball. And at this time, I hadn't promoted the City stuff, so no one was ever going to see my work. So social media was just taking off, well, for me. So Twitter and Instagram, not so much Instagram, but Twitter and stuff. So I started posting stuff on there. And as soon as that did, my followers went from like 20 followers to 2,000 followers to an escalate up, because it was a football thing. People buying into here's my favorite footballer illustrated. So it went up then. And then, like, it was like only a few weeks later, Arsenal got in touch and they said, can we work with you? And I want you to create a different footballer every week for like their birthday messages and things like that. So I did work for Arsenal. And then a few months later, I was working on magazine stuff. And then it went to like Juventus got in touch, and they wanted portrait stuff and player illustrations. So I was like, oh my God, I'm working with Juventus. There was an agency in Italy had seen my work. So, and then it just cascaded. So then, people saw me Juventus stuff. So then England Rugby got in touch. So I did a lot of work for England Rugby, did all the program covers for like quite a while. And then 40-foot banners at Twickenham, and everything. Just someone would see it on social media, and then they get in touch, and someone would see it. So I never actually sent an email out to anyone saying, can I work with you? I never contacted anyone and said, here's my work. It was just literally an email would come and I'd work with them, an email would come and I'd work with them. And that was going on in the background. So I was doing a full-time job, basically to the point then when I was helping manage a team, and I was doing all this work in the background for like ESPN, CNN, all these different organizations. Chelsea were in touch. I was working for all these different UEFA. So I was like going home, and this time I'd had kids, and we'd had two children by then. So I was going home and doing another job, which wasn't healthy. So I was basically full-time, going home, and then at night working on stuff for Juventus, or working on stuff for England Rugby, or whatever it was. And it wasn't healthy. And my wife kept saying, this is too much. And I said, it is too much, but I either go one way or the other. And at the time, it was a risky thing to go into something that, that it was easy to get my mortgage paid and stick with the job than it was to go off and be an illustrator, and, work could stop tomorrow, or you don't know what's going to happen. So, but the problem was, it just wasn't healthy. It wasn't a good lifestyle. And so then the idea and the thoughts was maybe build up some money, maybe build up some sort of thing. So you could, like, if you've got a year's wage, say, or you've got a few months' wages, you could then leave the company, and at least you'd have a bit of something behind you. And if it didn't work out, you could maybe go back into design, or, whatever it was. And I still didn't do it. So for probably eight years, I was working for 4 Point, and they'd actually gone from being a great place to work for to an even better place to work for, because they invested a lot in their staff. They invested in the business, so they bought new property, and they made a whole new design studio with its own kitchen and pool table and meeting rooms, and it was all open plan, and it was amazing. So they've got this great design studio they've got. I love my clients, I love my work, I love the team that I work with. So I got to the point where it was so bad, because I was like really happy in my design job, but I was doing this thing where, you're getting calls from the Premier League, or you're getting, I was literally interviewed in this room by the Premier League. They came here and interviewed me, it was just stupid, about the derby match. It was when Mourinho and Guardiola were playing each other for the first time, and they came, and I'd done the illustration for them, and they came and interviewed me with the proper Premier League microphone and everything. And I'm just like, and then I had to go to work next day and talk about nuclear, it's like, so it just got to the point where I think I got a few bigger clients, and then one client came in, and it was just like a big enough client to go, actually, that's enough work for probably a year or 2 years. And then we decided we were jumping ship, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it was a bit, because we were having our third child, which was due. So I told them I was leaving, which obviously they were a bit upset about, and I was a bit upset about. And then the day I left, my child was born. So I literally left, and then my third child, and little girl, was born. And then I started running my kids' football team, and I broke my foot all in the space of like a month or so. So I broke my foot, I broke my metatarsal, which is like the most football injury you can get playing football. So in like a month, I had newborn, I was running a kids' football team, I'd broken my foot, I had this big new client, and it was kind of like what have I done? What am I doing? But in truth, it's been nearly 4 years now since I left. So it'll be 4 years in June, and I've not looked back, to be honest. It's the next thing. So it's been pretty good.
That's incredible. There's a lot to dissect there, Dave.
Sorry. Once I'm on a track, I'm on that train. It's
No, it's great, because it's great to hear the flow and just the ups and the downs. I mean, there seems to be it sounds like it's on full circle, really, from Royal Rovers and then programs to you are pretty much creating the modern day Royal Rovers, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot in there about following your heart, really, isn't there? It's about sort of creating for things that you believe in. It's much more, it's much deeper than sort of soullessly creating for, just for the sake of making money. It's about, it has to be connected to what you're about.
Yeah, but what you understand. So like if you were to say to me, right, why didn't you do Spider-Man comics? Well, I wasn't interested in Spider-Man, and actually I'm not got that ability to create comic books. Or why didn't you do children's book illustration? Well, if I wanted to do children's book illustration, and I love children's book illustration, I have it all around my walls, I love Roald Dahl and all the things and books, but if I wanted to do that, I would have done it, and I would have been passionate about it. And I wasn't. And when I started doing football, I was passionate about it, and I understood it. And if you ask me to do a picture of Ronaldo taking a free kick, I know how Ronaldo takes a free kick and how his body position might be and how he might look. And I'll know what Messi looks like from a photograph, whether it's a good photograph that looks like him or one that doesn't look like him. When you illustrate, if you understand what I mean, it's kind of, I understand that thing, so I can deliver it. Like I said, the Ricky Gervais thing, I understood it, so I could deliver it. And that's what I've done.
We're going back to when you were at 4 Point. You've gone through, obviously, a long time there, junior, midweight, just did go up to senior, I presume.
Design director by the end of it.
Yeah. Right at the top of the chain, so to speak, of the, in terms of as far as you could go from an employer.
Yeah.
When you were working on, was it 8 years, you say, well, you were still doing as a sort of side hustle, much more than that, I presume, by then. It's, it'd gone from strength to strength before you jumped ship. Was that, did those guys know about that? Because I'm trying to understand the if you're going back, you've got children, wife, other pressures. Just a 9 to 5 is exhausting enough in this world. Yeah. You're doing it relentlessly. So from a well-being perspective, and then the potential to perfect, to change performance for your employer, did it start to become noticeable, or were they aware of it? Is that?
I think they were aware of it because I was open about it. I told them, and it's one of those things where, I went in and said to my boss, I'm working with Man City, and you can see them go like, you're doing what? And you could see they were like, I could tell him to stop this, or if it's, as long as it's not affecting my work. And it never affected my work. I never let it affect my work, because I knew that I had to deliver for them and my clients. And you work with people for 20 years that I hate the word saying they're like your family because it's a lot of crap, but it's that kind of the friends, and you don't, you know their kids, and you know their, I didn't want to mess people about. I wanted to, and it was high pressure in terms of dealing with clients. I didn't want to do that, but I told them, and I used to have meetings early on where I said to him, like, we'd have like your review, and I'd go in, they say, oh, you're doing really well, and I'd go, yeah. I said, but I really like illustration, and they go, and I go, but, I really like it, and they're like, what are you telling us for, sort of thing. And I was like, well, can I do more of it, or do you want me to do more of it? And they went, well, there's no part for it. And when there was illustration projects, they let me do it. I jumped on it. There was plenty of little things I did, but they didn't see a way in their business that I could do something like that. That's the way they think. I used to sort of say things like, I'm working with these top clients. Is there nothing we can do with it? As a business and stuff. But you got to understand, if you're running a design agency and you've got 20 staff and you've got all these different clients and all these different things, they're interested in what they do and their business, which is absolutely right. And it, what I do at home, as long as it didn't affect my work, it didn't bother them.
Yeah, and also going back to that, when you first mentioned, you talked about kids illustrations and say Head Candy. I know Head Candy because I've worked with them in the past myself, but they were that brand. I think they're under the Ministry of Sound family, but that was very much it's like a Bacardi Breezer sort of type style, wasn't it? It had that sort of, it was like a very loose, like young girls sort of, I guess it's a sequence. But that was from what I remember, that was one of the only brands that were really embracing things like illustration in those days, and especially in that format. And you see it in today's world. Illustration and design agencies seem to go hand in hand now. With identities. Some of it starts to become a little bit repetitive, but there's much more of a playfulness to that because of different sorts of audiences in the world we live in from a digital perspective. But it pretty much was the privy of sort of children's books, wasn't it? That was pretty much all that was where you embraced it, or that's what your mind's eye sort of represented. You thought it was like that, like you said, Roald Dahl, Lauren Child, all those sorts of things, Gruffalows. You must have been right at the start of maybe that curve of where people like companies like, say, Man City or Nike and BBC, etc., started to look towards that sort of style. Did you notice quite a sharp curve, thinking, this is a niche to go in? Actually, this has got potential to be much bigger.
I'd seen stuff. I'd seen illustrated work that clubs had used. Man City were probably one of the first. They did no one will ever remember it, but I think it was a music design agency in Manchester. They did a campaign where they did Adebayor and Sean Wright Phillips and different things, and like they did it all around the city. They did these amazing illustrations, like typographic illustrations and illustrations of Sean Wright Phillips going down a road, and then they'd have all this fire coming from it. I remember at the time, that's amazing, It's just, I remember thinking it was outstanding, and so it was being used, but like you say, it's probably the vector style of it, or the computer aided side of it, made it quicker and more easy for clients to use rather than painterly or drawn or whatever it is. I'm guessing that, and like the Head Candy is the same stuff.
Yeah, no, it's quite interesting sort of how it's blown up, isn't it? In that respect, the thing is, it's easy to forget that, say, a huge organisation like the FA, for instance, or Nike, they have so many subsidiaries, don't they? Within that, they go from the really high-end branding, experiential sort of stuff, right through to more, illustrative because it appeals to a certain audience, and there's always a space for it. That's the thing. I've sort of spoke to a few younger people recently, and they sort of say, I'm really into this niche or this specific discipline. I sort of say there's always a space for it. It doesn't, just because you see a company produce some sort of output, doesn't mean that's the only thing that they produce. It's about finding the right place for it.
I think you're right about the curve, and I think it was social media. So, and what social media and what gives illustrators and gives me a job is content. And for a while, I was calling myself a content creator because it's all about content. So if you're, like, for instance, Arsenal hired me, and they have a Twitter feed, and that's every day showing a photo of someone kicking a ball, or the next one's a quote, or the next one's a manager's statement, or the next one's a team sheet. Every now and again, one of my illustrations would drop in there, and it's different content. So when you're scrolling through, it's something different to look at. And I'd worked on a project, the Champions League draw for BT, with a few other illustrators, and it was talked about like a competition, but really wasn't a competition. It was kind of like them getting new content for every Champions League game out there, so that people would see different stuff rather than just a photo of this player looking at this player or this player. It was actually illustrated players on fire or kicking the ball through the goal, and it was all different content for them. And I think that sort of, like you say, that crest of the wave is, I hit it at the right time as among a few other illustrators. And I'm not saying I started that, but there was a definite upswing of content and people wanting content, and then that went into programs, and that went onto their websites and all these different things, and then people were getting more and more adventurous with how they were using illustrated content. So like, even like I worked with Monaco a few years ago, and when you go on a footballer's website, a club's website, they would have the photos of the players who play for the squad. Well, Monaco commissioned me to illustrate all the footballers. So when you went on, there was illustrated footballers of the whole squad, and then they used them when they signed players with banners with my illustrations on. They just saw a value in their content being viewed a different way. So rather than just content you look at and look away, it was content you go, oh, that's interesting. I like that.
Yes, I suppose, especially for an industry like football, where it's long gone are the days when it was for the, it was for the dads of the world, where we, back in the, I remember in the 80s, it was, you knew all the team and all the players. It was very much for the man of the world, wasn't it? And now it's got such a broad appeal across every sort of demographic and every age range, every sort of sex. Everybody wants is interested in it, and then they're constantly trying to feed that hunger, aren't they?
Constantly trying to give them information or visual interest that drives them towards your site to sell shirts, whatever it is, and it's easier for, I think, for art directors now to save people's work and see things they like and just literally go for it. So like, I always have this story about CNN. CNN got in touch, and I was a bit obsessed with CNN at the time, because I was a bit obsessed with the kind of the whole Donald Trump thing. I sort of like, I couldn't believe that this guy had become president. I just thought it was and it was just like the craziest thing that ever happened. So I used to watch CNN on YouTube while I was working, because it was just like, how is this happening? What's going on? And CNN got in touch and said, can we commission you to illustrate Donald Trump? Because we've seen some of your work, and we want a stained glass window of Donald Trump. And I went, of course you can. Yeah, that's amazing. I said, but how did you hear about me? And this guy just said, I love football. I'm a big football fan in America. And I'd seen your stained glass window designs you'd done years ago, and I'd saved them on my computer with all the other work I saved. And when we were in a meeting in New York at CNN talking about this article, I went, I know this guy. And I was like, someone at CNN is sat in a meeting room in New York, and he goes, I know this guy, Dave Flanagan. I'm going to get in touch with him in Chorley. You know what I mean? And then I did, it's crazy. So, I mean, the Nike job I've just done, it was lockdown. Basically, pandemic had started. My work sort of went like right down, because no one was commissioning football work. There was no football. My big client was gone a bit quiet for a couple of weeks. I had 3 kids running about. My wife works in a hospital. And I thought, I have no time to work, because my 2-year-old was running around. What am I going to do? I'm not going to earn money. I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage. I'm not going to be able to go out and actually work anywhere, because it's a pandemic. So I just thought, right, I'm going to do something new. And I just thought, I'd watched, the Abstract series on Netflix, absolutely amazing series. And there was one on the photographer, Peloton, can't remember his name. And they described his work as bold, graphic, and brave, or something like that. I think it was something like that. Oh, bold, graphic, and fearless, or something. And I went, that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be bold, graphic, and fearless. And I did an illustration of LeBron James. And I did another one of Mike Tyson. So I wanted powerful people, and I wanted to show that in a really simple way. And the reason I did that was because my 2-year-old was running around, and she would sleep for 2 hours in the afternoon. And that was the only time I got to illustrate. So I'd jump on my computer and quickly do one of these illustrations. And then I thought, well, how can I make that so it's just not just content on the internet that everyone looks at and goes, oh, I quite like that, because I used to get 50 likes, 100 likes on an illustration. I thought, how can I make it, that everyone looks at it? So I mocked it up as a Nike advert. So I put it on a billboard in Photoshop, and I put a Nike logo in the middle, and I thought, they can sue me if they want. Who cares? It's a pandemic. Who actually cares? And I posted it, 3 of them. It was Tyson, Bergkamp, and LeBron. And I posted it online, and I just even titled it something stupid like that, because I didn't want them to think it was an actual project, because I didn't want people going, oh, well done for working for Nike. I wanted them to know that I'd mocked it up. So I put something like, a boy can dream, can't he, sort of question mark sort of thing. And I posted it. And then I was looking after my 2-year-old, and my other 2 were doing schoolwork on their iPads and stuff, and their iPad kept pinging and pinging and pinging. And he said, Daddy, it keeps pinging, what's going on? And I was like, oh my God. And it was like literally like, share, like I had people following me from every sort of organization, from like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Adidas, all these top names. And it was just going do. And I got to like 1,000 likes, and I was like, what is going on? I'd never had anything like that, you know, and I've worked with big agencies and everything. I've released work, never had anything like that. And it was just going, and it got to the point where I was coming up to 2,000 likes, and my wife came back from work. I think it was the next day, sorry. My wife came back from work, and I said, look, I've nearly got 2,000 likes. And I know that's not a lot, because, you know, people looking at this, they tend to get 10,000 likes in illustration. I don't know. But to me, it was massive. Yeah. And I said to my wife, I said, this could be big, you know, this could be something big. And I went downstairs and I opened my email and pinged Nike. Can you please take down that post? First of all, I thought I'm getting sued. I thought I'm going to take it down and then never talk about it again. And the second line was, I'm the creative director at Nike headquarters in Oregon in America, and we really want to work with you on the project. But please take down the post. So I went straight down, but it was on 1,997, and I was like, can I just? So I took it down. I was gutted. But yeah, they said we want to commission you to create 5 murals for the new LeBron Innovation Center that they built. They built this huge innovation center for LeBron James, and it had a full basketball court in it, full running track, everything you could think of to make the best trainers or best sportsmen, all this sort of thing. They've made this whole thing, and I basically was commissioned to make 5 wall murals within that building of Serena Williams, LeBron. They used the LeBron one, Mbappe, the runner Kipchoge, which I never get around, and another basketball player. And it was just like, from basically winging something out in the time that my kid was sleeping, I got a massive job with Nike. And that's not me, honestly not me boasting. That's me going like, oh my God, can you believe that happens? You know. And that's how it's been a bit, you know.
There seems to be a couple of traits in this story, though. Is that there's one is like seizing the day, or sort of just making the most of the moment. You know, like from the being knackered on the farm to phoning that guy up that you thought you'd maybe bombed at to getting a job that lasted 22 years, through to this buzz, this sort of craving of, or enjoyment of the buzz of, you know, of whatever moment it is you're in, like picking the logo or just, you know, like that. And that's, I really like that, because that's that humble thing, isn't it? It seems like you're this guy working with this massive, you know, sports brand, but, you know, in theory, you know, they want to work with you because you're, you know, best in class, or one of the best in class in your field at what you do. So it's always great to have that. I think that humbleness is always a great asset, isn't it? Because it must be quite easy to sort of just say, you know, I'm brilliant, and, you know, just sort of posting this stuff out and just bragging about all the time, which is, it's just quite a sort of sickening trait when people go that way. So to remain, you know, within that space where, you know, you just sort of it feels like, from what I'm hearing, that you're just forever grateful for the opportunities.
Well, you are. I mean, it's kind of, in a social media point of view, I have to post stuff and say, hey guys, check out this new thing I've done, or I've really enjoyed working on this project. I can't post online, oh, I've just had a client mess me about and I've got an hour to do this, and I'm really struggling, so I've got to pick the kids up in a bit, and actually I've just saved over something and now I'm going to have to work through the night to do it. You're not going to post that, because what you don't want is your client here, you know, your potential new clients going, this guy's all over the show, this guy can't deliver. The only reason I got the Juventus job was because I delivered for City. The only reason I got the England rugby job is because I delivered for Juventus. And the only reason, it's building up that trust in projects you create, that they can trust that you can do it. The fact that I did work for Nike, they saw something they liked and they wanted it. They didn't go through my whole portfolio and go, oh yeah, this guy, I like his style. They picked a style that I'd done and went, I want it. And that could happen to anyone. You know, that could happen to someone who goes, you know, and I think it has happened many times. Like you said, there's all different branches of Nike. They're all looking at different things. They go, I like that, I want it. They don't have to go through a whole process. They just see something that's maybe new and looks like the freshest thing, and they take it. And you look at any illustrators now, if you create something that's everyone likes, or everyone's looking at, and everyone's, you know, talking about, someone like Adidas or someone like that will come and go, I want that, then you come and work with me before anyone else works with you, because it's new content.
Do you have any fear, or is there any fear in your line of work with anybody else that, you know, that they, organisations like that tend to pick things up based on trend, and it can come and go quickly. So you have the fear, do you have to constantly sort of to be developing new things, or do you just go at your own pace and find what fits you, or do you just try and fit what you think they might want?
I do the work I want to do. Oh, that sounds daft. I do get commissioned to do work based on other things I've done in the past, which is fine. And if there's stuff that they go, I really like what you've done there, do you want to do it? I will say, no, I don't really like doing that anymore, depending on the client. But I get a real buzz of doing something new and fresh for me. And when I'll go like, well, I've just experimented with type with this, or I've just experimented with color with this, and I throw it out on the internet and I tell people about what I'm working on, and then 8 times out of 10, it's snapped up by somebody. And what you end up having is a portfolio of not just one style that someone can go, yeah, I want that style specifically. And an agent loves that. An agent loves having someone who, I haven't got an agent, but an agent loves having someone who can create the same style and deliver the same style, because then they can sell that to people. Well, whereas I am creating maybe 20 styles or 20 different ways of working, they can't sell all that, what they're selling, whereas I can sell that. So I'm my own agent. Yeah. And probably the best example of that is the 2 projects I've been working, recent ones is BBC one. I was listening to a podcast with a guy called Yoni Weisberg, an amazing illustrator, and he's also an animator and a director, all sorts of things. And he was giving an interview to someone, and I listened to it, and I thought it was an amazing interview. He told this whole story about how he was in North Korea filming, and there was all this stuff happening. The army got involved. It's an amazing story. So I just posted online, just listen to the Yoni Weisberg interview. Amazing. You've got to hear his North Korea story. So he posted, oh, thanks, mate, blah, 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 love your work. And I went, oh, I really like your work and stuff. Never thought anything of it. So then I was being interviewed for a podcast a few weeks later. And at the end of the interview, the guy asked me, what would be your dream project? And I said, my dream project is BBC intro to a Euros World Cup big event. You know, that would be amazing. At the end of it, Gary Lineker sat there going, welcome to the Euro, whatever. And I said, that would be amazing. And I'd seen it because there was a design agency or someone who'd done one. Do you remember the Russia one where it was the tapestry? Yeah. And I just thought that was the best thing ever. And I thought, imagine being the illustrator that worked on that. So then, if I don't know, a few weeks later, a few months later, I got an email, can we have a Zoom call? We're from a production agency in Manchester, and we just like to have a chat. So I was like really busy at the time, and I was like, and I was like, I was ready for saying that, look, I'm really busy, but I was really busy. And I thought, no, I'll have a chat. Always have the chat. Always have the chat. And they said, yeah. And it was Ben McFarlane, and he basically from chief in production in Manchester. And they said, oh, we're working on this project. We think you'd be really interested in it. I said, all right, what is it? And they went, it's the Euros title sequence, you know. And I just went, and I was, again, that thing inside where it's all exploding, but I'm acting cool. And I'm on this Zoom call going, oh, right, yeah. And we had a chat about it. He said, yeah. And I said, well, which style of mine do you want to use? And they went, we want to use all your styles. And I went, all of them? And they went, yeah, we want each scene of the sequence to be different. So we want it to have a Spanish feel and an Italian feel and a British bold feel and a Nordic this feel and a Portuguese. And I was like, oh my word, you know, so not only is it my dream projects with the BBC Euros, they want to use all my styles, which it was just crazy. And then I found out that basically Yoni got on the next call. And I was like, oh, hi, Yoni. And then he'd obviously listened to my podcast because I'd said how his was a good one. He'd listened to mine. At the end of it, heard that they just won the pitch to do the Euros. 2 months before the Euros, I had to do 2 months of constant illustrating with that team. They were amazing, brilliant to work with. And we created the Euros sequence in like 2 months before the tournament.
Yeah.
And
that was the reason why we got in touch. Well, I got in touch with you because of seeing that and finding out that was you.
That's the reason I'm doing talks, is because I work with Nike and the BBC. You won't be talking to me.
Well, funny enough, early last year we had James from BBC Creative. We were talking about
who was one of the guys that commissioned them. Yeah.
But how was that? What was that process like? Because obviously the Euros got delayed 12 months, didn't they? Were you involved in that way years and years ago? Or
no, but I think what happened was, and I've listened to a podcast since with Yoni, and I think he said that people pitch to work with to create the BBC Euros intro to the BBC. They go through them and they choose someone, and then it's a process of then what it's going to be and storyboard and all the different things, and whether, you know, if the tapestry one, it would have been creating the tapestry and all the different things. But because pandemic kicked in, there was a big problem with who are they going to get to do it, how are they going to do it. They'd chosen, they hadn't told Chief Design that they'd won it, and then they only told them a bit before the tournament, so say 2 or 3 months before. So then Chief were like over the moon because they got this project, but then again, it's a pandemic, how are they going to create it? And their idea was really good. It was kind of like a art, how that could go through all the different teams and how the culture and how the thing could come through that and how they could animate that. And it was a really good concept. And my work was obviously making those footballers look good in those styles. And then they got another illustrator to come and do all the little bits. And then they got an animator to do like the 3D animation of the waves and all the things. So but they knew what they were doing. And that process is, you would think, and it might have been in a normal times a year before, it was actually truncated because it's pandemic. BBC might have thought this tournament might not happen.
Yeah.
So why spend a year doing it if it maybe doesn't happen? You know, so I mean, the problem for me was, because you're in 2 months, players were getting injured. So I'd illustrated Zlatan, I'd illustrated Spain's defender, what's his name? I'd illustrated Van Dijk. So all these players were dropping out or getting dropped, and I'd illustrated them, so I had to do them again. And then at the end, they said, oh, the BBC have had this idea of having all 24 teams coming together at the end. So they want a player illustrated from each of the teams. And this is in the last week. And I went, and they went, well, what we're going to do, because no way you'll be able to do it. They said, we're going to get a lot of illustrators to help. And I went, are you having a laugh? I will stay up. And I stayed up for a week and illustrated 24 players that they used, all coming towards the trophy in the middle. And it was only 3 seconds. Oh, no, it wasn't even 3 seconds. It was like 2 seconds at the end. And I spent a week working nights to get this. And what they did was, which was quite clever, was every time the teams went out, they went down from like 24, 12, 6 to, and then there was 2. I only noticed that near the end.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. But it was like, and I was really busy at the time as well, but I wasn't going to tell them that. So I was working through the night, back to working through the nights and stuff like that, because it was just so, I wasn't going to turn down BBC intros.
If only we would have won it. So close. Never mind.
Well, again, how iconic is that intro? We got to the final, so it's iconic. But how iconic would it have been if we won the thing? It was like,
you just fun there about them suggesting to get another illustrator involved. What does the future look like in terms of growth? Is there potential to bring people on and sort of, you don't suppose you can really? It's not like the more I speak to people that are similar to you, or like say when I said earlier before we came on with Craig Black, who's more like a visual sort of graphic artist. To me, it's much more like art than it is design, because it's so unique to you. But then you hear about art, like, you know, say someone like Damien Hirst, for instance. They just bring people on that just paint by numbers, don't they? You know, they just fill in the dots, so to speak. Is that something that's possible to do in your line of work? Is to get people to help, you know, with the workload?
It is, yeah. And I think there's different ways people can help with the workload. So before the pandemic, I was looking at going to maybe a studio rather than I work at home. I was looking at studio or shared workspace, which again, pandemic stopped that. And the other one was, how could I possibly take on? I didn't want to take on an illustrator. I wanted to take on like a student who was interested in getting into illustration, so that they could, one, I'm doing something and someone's learning from me. And, you know, because when you've worked for 20 years in design, it's not just the illustration you learn. I know how to create PDFs, I know how to talk to printers, I know how to be with a client. There's all sorts of knowledge that I've gained from working for 4 Point that is invaluable now. You know, I'm never going to mess a client about. I'm always going to be honest to a client, even if it's not what they want to hear. But I've learned that over 20 years. And I think taking on a student would be brilliant. But I've talked about it with my wife and said, like, where do I can't bring a student to my house. We don't want someone coming to the house and living in the house, you know, working in the house. And then if I go to a shared space, again, like you just said, are they doing the work and I can teach them to do that work, or give them some of the work and things like that? It's something I honestly am thinking about. It's just the logistics of doing it, I suppose.
Yeah, when you're busy, it's just taking that leap, isn't it? It's always about time, isn't it?
Well, I have a client that I work for, and their work is I work with Tembet, and they started their new brand a few years ago. Basically, that was the big client that I left with. 4 Point didn't have them. I got that as my new client to go into illustration, to start my illustration career, and they based their whole brand and look on a style of illustration, kind of one of mine, and we developed that together. And now everything that Tembet do is that style. Now they actually have since hired or hire other illustrators to do that style as well. I was doing all of it, but it's just too much work. So they were the ones where I thought, well, if you brought a junior in, you could have them doing the like a design agency would the day to day, or even build up the premise of the illustration and then I craft it at the end and stuff like that until they're good enough to do it. It's that kind of thing. It's just the logistics of where do they sit, where do they go. I could work remotely with them, but I know working in a design agency, I really liked connecting with people and being in the same room and throwing ideas around. I don't know how Zoom would work, and I'm doing talks with the uni next week. I've talked to Preston College about doing talks with them, because I think if someone was really interested in it, I could give them 2 days a week work and they could learn loads from it, you know, and I could pay them or whatever it is, but it's working all that out, I think.
Yeah, and it's because it sort of falls in the middle ground, doesn't it? In my mind, it's sort of like quite a virgin sort of industry, this, what you're working in,
Yeah.
compared to say like design, where it's all the foundation have been laid out decades before, haven't they? I mean, we all pretty much follow the same sort of framework. We just have different philosophies about how we create, haven't we? So I suppose you sort of you're building something new that it is a completely learning day by day, isn't it? In that respect, how to manage something and how to guide people and bring.
There are people doing it. There are people who are a group of illustrators that get together to create a thing. There are people who work as 2 or 3 people as an illustration team. You know, I think like Bros Mide and things like that. You know, that they create content together. It is something you can do. It's just having someone you can trust, or having someone that's going to deliver. Because at the end of the day, as you know, in design, in 20 years, the one thing I've mainly learned is you have to deliver. You can't, and it's all on you.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to deliver. If you don't deliver, you'll never work with that client again, you know.
Yeah. It's cutthroat, isn't it, to say the least. We've got some questions here now. One from Rob. Actually, I think there's a couple in 2 questions in each of these posts. Rob has asked, how often will you self-initiate a project so that you can experiment, and how important is it for you to experiment with new styles?
So it's really important for me to experiment with new styles, because I don't want to keep creating the same work, and I want my potential clients to see the potential in what they're doing. It's really important. I think it is for me. Maybe if you have a style and that's your, you know, you would make your living from that style, it's then trying something different every now and again with that style. So maybe you change the background, maybe you change the way you create that illustration, maybe you change the way that you reproduce it, or you print it, or you show how it can be used in different ways digitally or with animation. I think it's always important to be evolving and changing what you do, even just the point, because you'll take one little bit, you'll take one bit of the way you did some eyes, or the way you did some shading, or the way you did the background, and you'll take that and go, actually, next time I use that, I'm going to do that with it. And that's how it keeps it fresh and new for me. And I try my best to do it as often as I can, but 3 kids and commissions and stuff, it's hard. But like, for example, a few weeks ago, probably a couple of months ago, I did an illustration, and it was because I don't know what I'd seen. I think it was an advert, and I really liked the colorways in the advert and the shapes. And I thought, well, that looks like something I'd done in the past, but imagine if I did it and I did it in this way and used really vibrant colors. And I did that illustration, and I just did, because I wanted to do it. And I posted it on Twitter and said, I'll just try out this new style. And I've just received, I can't talk about the commission, but I've just received 2 of the biggest commissions I've ever got from one picture. So if I hadn't done that picture, I wouldn't have got those 2 massive commissions, like 2 of the biggest things I've ever done. I can't talk about them, but it was from one picture. And like, again, I might not have done that. I might have that night said, oh, that's a good advert, not done anything with it. But if you have something you're passionate about and you see something you want to do it, do it and get it out there. Who cares? You know, if someone doesn't like it, doesn't like it.
Yeah, but I think there's an issue, a wider issue, and I notice it with graphics, especially, is that, especially with social media or something like Instagram, it's the tendency to get it to a point where it's overly perfect.
Yeah.
You have the confidence to share it. And some of the accounts that I see, the best studios that I like, they're not necessarily the best in terms of what they do, the content they put online. It's like a scrapbook. So you sort of see the process and the thoughts and the ideas and the things that you don't get to see, like the notepads and all that with all the early sketches. I find that much more interesting than necessarily seeing loads of polished work. And I've fell into that trap myself loads of times. It's easy because it's all about appearances, isn't it? So, but by sharing that stuff, like you say, I mean, that seems to be quite a running theme, is that things have been picked up just because they're in the timeline of somebody that might want them.
But that's that's it. It's been in the timeline. It's like, I think I've got 10,000 followers on Twitter, but I'm interested in the 60 people seeing my work. You know, it's great that Joe Bloggs, who supports Man United, has seen my work and he's liked it. But who I want to see it is John, whoever, who works for this big agency, and he's shown it to his mate in the agency, and someone's got in touch, and then they commissioned me to do his work because they're looking at this new work. And you've got to be in that eye line. You've got to be being viewed by the right people. So it's really important to do new work.
I've got a question here from Will. There's a couple. So what is your process when you approach a brief, and have you ever dabbled in motion to bring the illustrations to life?
My process is get as much out of the client as possible, because whatever you, and I still don't do this properly, get as much information as you can, ask the stupid questions, because you'll do a player facing a certain way, or you'll do him in a certain kit, and they went, oh no, I meant them in the 80s kit, or I meant that time he was doing it over a kick, not when he was heading it. Or get as much information as you can and ask the stupid question, because the stupid question you don't ask is time and everything. In terms of process, it's then really defining what the client's after, what they're trying to get across, where it's being used, how it's being used. And then it's about, well, for me, say it's a picture of Ronaldo and they want him taking a free kick. Well, where's he taking the free kick from? How's he taking the free kick? What haircut do you want? Because he's had a ponytail recently, or he's had a beard, or whatever it is. It's all that sort of stuff. And then you then know, again, being a football person, I know the best references to take in terms of body position. I know the best ones that would make it look like he's actually kicking the ball, because I play myself. I know that sounds stupid, but it's like trying to get the best reference and the best knowledge on how he might take a free kick, so that when you're working on the illustration, it's easier to exaggerate certain bits, or it's easier to simplify certain bits. Because my work can go from really detailed all the way to simple blocks. You know, if you look at my website, you'll see illustrations that is like a few shapes to make the player, or it's detailed drawing or painting sort of style. And everywhere in that scale, you have to make it look like Ronaldo kicking a ball, if you know what I mean. And it really hangs on using the right imagery and reference that you think that looks like Ronaldo, and not one where his face is distorted or it's out of shape, because it won't look like Ronaldo, and then the client will go, it doesn't look like Ronaldo. It's got to be, you've got to be using the right stuff and using the right information and get that from the client. And then it's about, one of the things I do as well is I tend to throw things to the client that are really rough. So I'll say, right, here's a really rough vector shapes of how he's going to be kicking the ball, or here's a really rough photo montage of how it's going to look positionally. And that saves you so much time, because what you end up with, the client goes, no, I didn't want them all facing that way. I wanted them facing that way. And I didn't want him holding that. And you're like, right. So that saved me illustrating all that up, or sketching that all out, because actually I've now found out all this stuff that you didn't want to happen, you do want to happen. And it still will change, but actually you've saved yourself a day, half a day, whatever it is. So that's kind of process, I suppose. So it's as rough as you can be, because the client's happy. They're happy seeing what you're doing. So be as rough as you can be, and to the point where you're going, actually, this is how it's going to look, and then this is the finished thing. And then explain to them, if it's done in Photoshop, it's going to be really difficult to change this once I've done it. This is done in vector, so you'll be able to use it this way and that way, and I can change these elements, but it's going to be difficult. And it's so on and so forth. Always inform the client. And then the other question, which was about animation, I've tried. I've tried. You'll see bits that I've done maybe, and I've done like people kicking balls and stuff. I've done bits of animation, and I've tried augmented reality. Again, it's not quite my passion enough. And if it was my passion, I'd be doing it. What I've worked with The Guardian, I've worked with BBC, I've worked with Man United recently, and they have animators, and I do the illustration work, hand over the files, and they animate it. And I know I should be getting into that, and I know that the world's moving towards more animation. I know the world's working towards NFTs. I know that's what's happening. But in the same thing, I do what I enjoy. And I can't get my head around NFTs, and I can't get my head around me sitting here doing animation and working, because I've tried doing After Effects, and it's brilliant, After Effects, but it's like an alien world to me, and it takes me longer to get my head around doing the After Effects than it would be for me to create illustrations that an expert animator who probably went and studied it at uni and stuff and is brilliant at it will do in half the time.
Yeah, and these things, I think it's a bit like, I remember when everyone said print was dead in favour of web, and there's a place for everything, isn't there? So there's always going to be, like, you know, when you do a mural in Nike in Oregon, you know, in their new centre, you know, that's a flat piece of art, isn't it? That's stuck on a wall effectively. So there's always going to be a space for that, you know. It's just whether you want to add to that as well when you move forward. Final question there, Dave, from Johnny. So now that you've had the big Euros intro, and that was a dream project, is there now anything that you've got your mind set on that can be maybe emulate that, or you know, supersede it? Or maybe you can't tell us.
Yeah, I kind of, it was a bit like that. It was a bit of a kind of like, that was my dream project. Where do you go now, and how do you keep yourself, you know, wanting to do it? My dream project used to be, obviously, start to work with City. I did that. It used to be, I wanted to work with England. I work with England. I think a dream project would probably be something where you drive down the street and see it on a billboard, or you'd see it in Times Square. I know Everton signed a player last summer, and the illustrator they used, it was on Times Square. I mean, that's got to be amazing, hasn't it? I
think, do you know Matt Boyce? Matt Boyce has just had something put on.
Has he?
Yeah, through an agency, you know, kinetic type sort of type.
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah. The guy who does all the animated type and stuff. Yeah. His is the same. He throws stuff out, and someone sees it. His stuff's amazing. But I think it's probably that. I think it's probably big sports brands, murals, things like that. Getting my work on products and stuff, which should be good.
I can see a Gymshark collaboration coming on here. that would be right down your alley, I think. My
dream project is not to have an NFT that's sold for £100,000. I know it's not. How is that a dream for anyone? For one guy to own your work, and I don't get it. As an artist, I don't quite get it yet. Maybe I will, but it's not for me.
Yeah. On that note, I think that's a good place to end it. But it's been a pleasure speaking to you, Dave. I told you that 45 minutes has gone rapidly faster. We're over an hour now, so that's it's great to hear your story. Like all of these events, these shows, it's just hearing the story of people, how it all came about, and just the passion behind it, and the drive, the dedication, and all that knowledge is great to hear. So I hope it's been enjoyable for everybody that tuned in. I hope you have a great weekend, mate, and we'll have to catch up again very soon.
Thanks.
Brilliant. Take care. Thank you, mate. Ta-da.